All right, welcome back. Nathan Wilson, Driving Dreams. So I was just doing the video in there on the 64 that we're building, that we're actually restoring fully, and made me think about maybe doing a video about what is fully restored. What is, what do you consider a restoration or a fully restored car, or a nut and bolt restoration or frame off restoration? You hear all these terms when you're looking at cars online, and it's funny with the Lincolns. I've seen quite a few ads where they say frame off restoration, and if you know these cars, they're unibodies. There is no frame. You can't really take the body off the frame, so most of the time that's a bunch of BS, but it's just funny how people will say, the terms people will use. So this car was advertised as restored, and it was a few years old restoration. So there's a difference, like I was saying in the video, in the last video on that car. Like, there's a lot of different levels of this, and so in this situation, a guy will say, well, it was restored because it was painted, the top was done, the interior was done, the motor was gone through, quote unquote. They'll say things like that in their ads, or sometimes they'll say motor was rebuilt. But what do you mean by rebuilt? Did you redo a few gaskets? Maybe you clean some stuff up. Sometimes you'll see guys literally will just scuff things down and spray paint things and try to make it look cleaner, and they'll say, oh, the motor was done, or did you actually pull the motor, rebuild it, put new pistons, did you do a new camshaft, things like that. So there's just so many levels. But I see the ads all the time where it'll say, fresh restoration or fully restored, or sometimes they'll say, restored 3 years ago or 5 years ago, or something, like the case with this car. So just because a car was painted, that doesn't, like, obviously, you guys know there's a million levels of that, of how well was the car painted. So this is a good example of, you can see when they painted this car, they just taped off the weather stripping and stuff, and you can see they got paint on the weather stripping a lot and stuff. They taped off the trim. When you look real close, you can see that there's paint on the trim. So the car doesn't look bad, and I'm sure when it first got done it looked even better. It's only a few years old, but I'm using this as an example to show the difference of what we were doing in there on that black 64 that we're building right now, and that type of paint job versus this type of paint job. And so when you see this car online, it doesn't look that bad, in the pictures and stuff. It looks decent. So if you don't see it in person, you may not notice a lot of this stuff, and people aren't fully open and honest in their descriptions and stuff to say that, yeah, okay, it was painted, but it was kind of half-ass paint job. So if you see an ad and it says fresh paint, new top, all new interior, new carpet, motor was redone, you're thinking, wow, this is like a fresh build, and this car will go for like 80 grand. And then you see the car that we're doing in there sells for $350, and you're thinking, wow, I just saw one that was all done, for 100. I don't understand it. Well, these are the differences. So you see, like, the tape lines, you can see where the little rust bubbles are coming back. These cars always rust down there at the bottoms of those doors. So if you're not replacing that dog leg, cutting out that section of metal, doing actual metal work, most of the time, eventually it's going to come back. And then you can see, like, where pieces were kind of bumping against each other and chipping off because they didn't really do a great job really on the paint or on lining up all the panels and everything. So you can see, obviously, this is a good example of differences between what we're doing in there and what we typically do on a full restoration, versus what somebody would say is a full restoration. And like I mentioned, the wheel wells in there, so I'm sure when you look in here, you see this. I mean, there's a little bit of kind of hack job going on here, but you can see that, like, this is exactly what I was talking about, where they didn't do all that. They didn't clean all that up, strip it all down, and new pour 15 and all that stuff. But overall, this is a pretty nice car. They did the interior, and now this is vinyl versus we always do real grain leather. So there's a lot of things like that. And the main thing really, like I said in the other video, you don't have to go quite so overboard, you know, like we do on a lot of cars. That's just what, you know, what those particular people are wanting. But if you're not really rebuilding that engine and you're not really going through the wiring harness and all that stuff, then this is why you have what people call the Lincoln life. You're always having problems, tops not working. It'll work for a while, then all of a sudden it stops and things like that, you know, and you're just always kind of, you know, sending in for repairs and stuff. That's because it really wasn't done like the right way. So again, nothing wrong with this. This is a great car, and you know, if you can pick this car up for 80 grand or something like right now, that's not bad. 60 grand, whatever you end up, you know, these types of cars kind of tend to go in that range, like 60, 80, maybe even 100 if it's, you know, the color combo that you want or whatever. Then hey, great, you know, and you could drive it around and you can maybe not have too many issues. So this is, I drove this car here. I drive this car all over hell and back. It's I've been driving it for a while now. This is what you would call unrestored. So this car, it's it's funny, there's a difference between all original untouched and then unrestored. So this is unrestored, but it's been, you know, this car has been used, it's been, you know, worked on over the years. It was a situation where every time something needed to be done just to keep it going, they just did that, you know. It was never sent in for a full restoration. It never spent, you know, 2-3 years in a shop getting everything redone. But you know, when something went bad on the engine, they replaced it. If something electrical went bad, needed a relay or something, they did that. So just over the years, it was just kind of kept going. So then I got it, and the old man died, and I got it, and I kind of redid some of the engine stuff, and I did like the same thing. I just did all the reliability stuff so that I could, you know, drive it and be pretty confident in it, which is, that alone is a big thing. You can see sand. We took it to the beach yesterday, you know, like, so the nice thing about this, and the reason I drive this all around as like a daily driver, because I don't have to worry about scratching it. And you know, it's not a $300,000 car. So everything has its place. A restored car, like a mid-level restoration, unrestored car just kind of kept going. You know, there's when I make these videos, I don't want to come across like, oh, if it's not done like the one that we're doing in there now, or some of the ones we've done in the past, if it's not done like that, then it's just trash, you know. Like, I'm not saying that at all, and there's a place for everything. But you know, I make these videos Lincoln specific, and I try to help guys out. And so I just want you to be aware, if you can go see a car before you buy it, you definitely want to do that, so you can see some of these really smaller details. And you know, sometimes I get sick of hearing, oh, I saw one online the other day, it sold for 80 grand, and it was just like that one that, you know, you just sold for 320. I don't get it, you know, like, you're ripping people off, that's too much money. Well, trust me, it was not the same, you know. So this is kind of, I would say, about in between that white one and the black one we're doing now. It's a little bit better job on just about everything, but it's still, you know, not to that level in there. So this car actually we just sold for 90. So we did the interior. It is leather. It's all fresh, brand new interior. We took the dash out completely, redid all that, you know, did a lot of stuff with the wiring. You can see everything is nicely polished and clean, and you know, new glass on the dash, all that stuff. All the reliability stuff, motor was done. All the electronics, like I did all the limit switches. You guys know I make all my own limit switches and relays and stuff. All that was done, all that was replaced. So this car will be more reliable, stuff will work, you know, a little better. But we didn't do, this wasn't a full tear down nut and bolt restoration, where like we, you know, did all the Dynamat in the floor and all that type of stuff. This is kind of what you get for like the $80,000-$100,000 range. This is kind of typically what you'll expect, or what you should A lot of times, unfortunately, you get something more like that, especially if it was sprayed black, even if they taped it off and whatever. Those cars will go for 100 grand, 120, even 150, and they're not even as done as well as this one was. So just to give you kind of, you know, a little heads up on that. So, you know, people use the term lipstick on a pig. You see that a lot where these shops will get a car. It's a lot of flippers and shops that kind of, you know, they're just there to make the money. So they'll get maybe a car like this red one I was telling you about, and they'll do a nice slick black paint job. And when I say nice, I mean, you know, it looks good, but it's not like the one we're doing in there. You know, a lot of stuff was maybe skipped, but you can do lipstick on a pig. It's not that, you know, you can do that somewhat inexpensively if you're not worried about all the details, and you know, you're not trying to do everything right. You could do lipstick on a pig, and you can get 150 grand for that car, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, it's kind of what I'm showing you there. So I just wanted to, I'll show you this one as an example. This is kind of, when I just mentioned the untouched, unrestored, you know, this is an example of that. So this car, and they all have their place and they all have their value to different people. To me, this car has tremendous value because it is literally untouched and unrestored. It's never been worked on. So the guy, and it looks rough right now because I've had it sitting here for a couple of years, just kind of sitting here. But the guy had it, he bought it brand new. He had it for like less than a year or so, almost 2 years. And then he was going through a divorce, and he didn't want the wife to get it, so he hid it in a garage, and it stayed there until I picked it up in 2018. So it literally has 6,800 miles, and like, this is the original top from '64, and it's in great shape, you know, for what it is, you know. So there are guys like real collectors and guys like myself where I see the value in this, and you know, I'm in the process of doing this kind of little by little in the background. I've already done all the underside and totally rebuilt the motor, put a new motor in, all that stuff, the exhaust, and kind of, as like I was showing you on that black car in there, I kind of did it pretty much to that level, except everything's original. Obviously, for a car like this, it wouldn't make sense to put air ride and do a motor swap and all that. So it's 100% original. Everything is you know, going to be done exactly like it was from the factory, and it's a shame because it'll be painted that color, which was not the greatest color, you know, from the factory. Everybody wants a black one, so it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a shame in that way. But that car, to certain people, will have more value maybe even than something like this. So the point of this is, to each their own. Everybody wants something different, but just be prepared and understand, you know, this video, I guess, is to kind of help you understand what you're getting and what to look for, and understand what you want and what you need. You know, you may not need this, you know, you may not even care. You might be fine with the lipstick on a pig, where, you know, like I had mentioned in the other video, like all the underside has got the grime from 1964 on it, and you don't care. Who cares? Who's gonna see this? You know, people aren't, when your wheel's on there, even if they wanted to, you can't really crawl up under there and see that. So for a lot of guys, they want it to be shiny black, whatever. They will have a decent looking paint job, looks good from afar, and then everything that you don't see, they don't give a shit about. And that's fine. So if that's for you, that's fine. And I just, you know, I didn't want to come across like, when I was making the other video, I'm sure I might have come, you know, sometimes I can come across like, hey, this is the way to do it, and if you don't do this, then you're, you know, you're skimping out, or you're not doing a good job, you know. So there's a place for everything. So hope this video helped you guys, maybe helps you know kind of what to look for, get an idea of what you really want, what you can afford, what's realistic for you. When you see these cars go through Barrett-Jackson for $750 or $500, or, you know, you see these cars like that and you think, oh, you know, I want that. Well, be prepared to kind of pay that. And if you don't want to pay that, then you need to understand what you're sacrificing, and if you're okay with it. So like, you don't need these pieces to be powder coated. You don't give a shit. Nobody's ever gonna see those. Those are the braces that hold the top on. I totally understand that. You see the car that I drove here today, it was the worst one in this whole bunch, right? So I get it, and just wanted to kind of, you know, clarify some of those terms that you see, and you know, kind of clarify some of the differences and why the prices are all over the place like that. Hope that video helped. See you guys next time.